Okay, we're gonna do three very short tutorials. Now I wanted to do all of them with gradients, but for some reason gradients don't work on one of them. So we're gonna do gradients with a couple of them, but for one of them, I'm just gonna show you how to do it another way. So anyway, it doesn't really matter. We're gonna start with this picture of the two dudes hanging out on the beach. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to start by going up to a layer at the top, and we're going to get a new fill layer. Okay, and we're going to choose gradient fill. Okay, so this is what we got. It's set to be a linear layer. We want to switch that to be radial, so that way it's hitting in the middle. We want to uncheck align with layer because we don't want that. And your off X and your off Y in Photopea is how you move it around. So if I want to move my gradient, I can do that. Let me put it back at 0. Now you can change it later, but for right now we're going to leave it where it is. All right, so we're going to double click on our gradient, maybe. Oh, here. And that'll bring up our gradient editor. So what we're going to do is for our picture of our dudes, we're going to make it look more like, we can see the sunsets. We're going to enhance it a little bit. So let me check that back on so we can see what we're doing. On this left side, what we're going to do is we're going to click on this little box down here on the bottom, double click, and it'll bring up our color picker. We're going to go into the yellows. And what we want is a really, really light yellow, almost imperceptibly yellow, mostly white. And then click OK. And let's drop that in there. You can barely see it, but it's fading from that yellow to a white color. Now, if you click down here next to the bar, you can add a color. So we're going to double click, and we're going to go in and we're going to get an orange color. We're going to keep it kind of light. Why don't we go in just a little bit darker? Now it's moving a little slow. It's kind of a golden color. So we hit OK. Okay, so now we've got our little sun there. And then we're going to move this over so it fades a little bit more gradually. Let's see if we can get it to go. All right. Let's pop in another color right in the middle. And we're going to make that kind of a deep red. So we're going to go down into the reds and down into the burgundy down here. Not too dark. Maybe like that. Okay, we might want a little more red. Let's get some more red in there. Yeah, that's a little better. We want some color. And then our last one here, we're going to make that black. Now, what I think we should do is move this one over. Okay, now our smoothness is set at 100%. This looks okay for now. We can adjust it a little more later. I think if you want, we can give it a little more yellow. But for now, it looks good. Okay, we're going to hit OK. Okay, so that's our color gradient. What we're going to do is we're going to change the mode over here. So we're going to go back to our layers panel. We're going to change this to screen. All right, so it already looks a lot better. We're going to take our opacity down, though, to about 50%. Okay, that's not bad. Now, notice it's not where the sun is. So what we can do is we can, our left right is X and our up down is Y. So we're going to take the Y up until it kind of lines up on where the sun is. Okay, that looks pretty good. We might want to click back here and even turn our opacity down a little more. It really kind of depends on how much vibe you want to give it. But you can always go back and change some things. Like if you use darken, okay, that's probably not going to work. But basically by using screen, it sort of makes the black invisible. So this is kind of the vibe we want to go for. So this is our original. Now we added some sun flare going on. We might even take it down a little more. Nah, I kind of like it around 35 on this one. Now yours might look a little different. You might want to pull it down a little more depending on where you set up your center. You might even want to make it bigger. You can change the scale on it. So the scale will change the size of it. And since it's off a little bit, we might want to go to the left. So it's really just kind of about finding the right feel. Okay, so that's one way to use gradients to kind of enhance a picture. So first thing we're going to do, we're going to save it as a PSD. We are in photopea.com. Notice it saved it to my downloads folder, and then I'm going to export as a JPEG. That's the one I'm going to turn in. So save it. Now I've got my JPEG. Let's see if I can get it to open here. Oh, it did open. Yeah, so it looks pretty good. All right, let's close that. We're going to go to our next one. I told you these are short, but they're super useful. We're going to open from the computer. We're going to start with this one here. That's the little house. Okay, another good one. First thing we want to do is go down to the bottom, and we're going to click on the adjustment layer for new adjustment layer, and we're going to add a gradient fill. Okay, so right now it's linear. That's fine. Let's change the angle to negative 90 degrees. And what that's going to do is put it up at the top. All right. Next step is we're going to click on, oh, we don't want to line with layer. We're going to leave that off. That basically locks it in place. We don't want that. So we're going to double click on our gradient, and we want to change this one here to a light blue. Now what you can do is you can click on the blue and you can try and find the right one, or you can do it this way. I'm going to give you the coordinates, so, or the colored numbers. So the red will be 116, the green, let's set it at 175, and the blue is at 219, and then hit OK. And that's our light blue. Now what we want to do is on the left side, on the right side, we want to click on the box at the top. That's going to make it transparent. So we're not going to go to white. Now if you have black in the background, you want to make sure this one on the right is set to white. The main reason is if you put it to black, even if you go transparent, let me hit OK. Even if I go transparent, you're going to notice that it goes through some grays in here. So we want this one to be white. I'll go back to here. All right, and then we are going to hit OK. All right, and we're going to change this mode to darken. Okay, so basically that gets rid of all the lighter stuff. All right, now there's a couple things we want to do. You can see how the blue is bleeding into the house a little bit. So one way we can do that is to go into the gradient and change, well, I mean, you can't really do it there. Never mind that. The easiest way to do that is to change your Y axis and bring it up to about negative 25 or so. You'll notice it doesn't really affect the house. Now another mode you can use is multiply, and that one seems to smooth it out quite a bit. And of course, you know, you can adjust it so it's just off the house enough as well. So even like 25 on that would be okay. You just don't want to have the house turning blue. Now one thing you'll notice, see, it's not letting me move it. All right, you won't notice anything. But that will add a little bit of nice change to your picture. And if it's too much, you can take the opacity down a little bit, or you can change the color. If the blue is too blue, we can go in and make it a little bit lighter. Okay, so there's before, there's after. So it's really, trying to find that right balance, trying to find the right look. All right, that's it for that. Let's go to save as a PSD, and then go to File and export it as a JPEG. You're going to turn in the JPEG. And let's do one more. This one's really cool, and it kind of reminds me of the last one we did with the moose, or the elk, or whatever it was. So we got the picture of the girl. Our first step is we're going to make an adjustment layer. Now, in Photoshop, this works really well if you use gradients, but we're going to do it a different way. So we're going to go up to Curves, and I'm going to click right in the middle and drag it up just a little bit. Okay, so what it's done is it's an adjustment layer, so it's made a mask. Okay, first thing I want you to do is you're going to invert it. Now, there's a couple ways to do it, but the easiest way is to go Control-I to invert that mask. Okay. Then I want you to take the paintbrush, make sure this mask is clicked. We can move this out of the way. And if your paintbrush is up at 1000, we're going to take it all the way up. Hardness at 0, and the opacity should be at 50. Then we're going to come in and paint in here. Now notice nothing's happening because we're trying to paint black on black. So we need to change it so that white's on top. That way, when we paint the girl, it reveals a little bit of what we added to it. Now I'm holding down the mouse and I'm just kind of tracing her. Okay, so I do it one time, let go, I'm going to go back and do it again. Try not to go too far off of her body, because then you're going to have a halo, and that's not really what we want. Okay, and then maybe a third time I'll come in and hit it one more time just to try and get that to pop. Now watch as you toggle on and off. See how much that lightened her up. Now what that's doing is it's drawing focus into the girl. Now what we might do is switch it back to black and come in and maybe make sure we don't have a lot of extra here. See how in the mask it's covering up those spots. And you can use a smaller brush to do that. Now we don't want to spend forever nitpicking it, but you want to have it look somewhat natural. You don't want her to look like she's glowing. So right now it's already drawn our eye to her more than it was in the original. We're going to take it next level. We're going to do another adjustment layer with the curves. And we're going to leave it white this time. And what we're going to do is click the middle and drag it down to the middle of that box. Notice it's made it dark. Okay, what we're going to do is hide this. And we're going to paint with the black this time. Oops, make sure you're on the mask. Okay, and we're going to open up this part so we can see her. Okay, there's one. You could do it with a little smaller brush. What I don't want you to do is to get like super small brush and spend forever. You want to have a little bit of bleed, but not a ton. And then see how it's sort of transparent still? So if I hit it another time, something else you could do is change your opacity up a little higher, maybe 70 or something. But you want to try and make it look sort of natural, so you don't want a hard edge. All right, and now same thing. I'm going to go back and try and clean up some of this stuff around the outside, around the outside, around the outside. Don't get too close to her because it does bleed a little bit. You can see on there, where the problem areas are. Might be able to put a little more shadow in there, but I kind of like a little bit more glow there because it tends to draw us in a little more. You can really notice it on this bar. Now, she's still glowing a little bit, but it's not terrible. You know, you can even like click on areas to try and darken them up if you don't want to drag it. But that's pretty good. Now, if we turn those off, this is where we started. This is where we ended. So what you're doing is you're drawing a whole bunch of focus in on the girl. Now, if it's too stark, you can always turn them down a little bit on the opacity so it's not quite as obvious. But look how much focus that's drawn in. Where the original, she was just sort of, you know, dark in the front and it was sort of washed out the way we had that. So we're going to get to this point. And of course, if you want to get super specific, you can go in here, make this smaller, and paint that back in under there. But again, you're going to run the risk of making it obvious, and we don't want that. Yeah, I don't really like how it darkens the cushion. So I probably would undo that and just let the glow happen like she's reflecting the light. And that's it. That's one way to enhance your pictures a little bit. This is a really handy trick. And, you know, if you want to bring focus to a different point, I mean, you could have done it with the cushions. You could have done it with anything. The bars, if that's what you wanted to draw focus to. So let's file, save as a PSD. So you're able to edit it, and then file, export as a JPEG, and turn in all 3 JPEGs. And that's it. That's a very short lesson.